I begin this webinar by reciting a few self-composed lines which might be relevant to the topic of today's webinar. It is I who created this factory. It is I who run this industry. Without I, nothing moves inches. But it is you who still exists inches. You who is never seen. You who has never been. But still, I pray to thee whenever I fall prey to somebody. It has, is, and will always be a topic of discussion whether the Almighty is a separate entity or is within each and every individual. A very blissful, cheerful, and happy morning to all present. Today, we are going to embark upon a virtual voyage to Victorian era so that we can find out what were its major characteristics, how the literature evolved during this time, and also how and why it is famously known as the age of doubt and faith, science and religion. And to delineate upon the same, we have amongst us the erudite scholars, Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya, Associate Professor for Teaching College, West Bengal, and Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee, Assistant Professor, Ram Mohan College, Kolkata. I extend a very warm and sparkling welcome to Dr. S.P. Singh ji, former Vice Chancellor, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, and a visionary, dedicated, and charismatic President of Gujranwala Khalsa Education Council, Ludhiana, Sardar Arvinder Singh ji, Honorary General Secretary, Principal Dr. Arvinder Singh ji, all the faculty members, and my respected and dear participants. Now I request Dr. Sushminder Keekor, Associate Professor and Head Postgraduate Department of English, to elucidate the theme of today's webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Dr. Jitinder. The sea of faith was once two at the full, and round earth's shore lay like the folds of a bright girdle furled. But now I only hear its melancholy, long, withdrawing roar, retreating to the breath of the night wind down the vast edges drear and naked shingles of the world. Matthew Arnold's poem Dover Beach emphasizes his bewilderment over his nation's willing loss of its religious soul. Honorable Dr. S.P. Singh, former Vice Chancellor, Guru Nanak Dev University, and President, Gujranwala Khalsa Education Council, Honorary General Secretary, Sardar Arvinder Singh, Principal Dr. Arvinder Singh, respected intellectuals, dignitaries, and my dear colleagues and friends, a very cheerful good morning. It gives me immense pleasure to extend to you all warm greetings on behalf of Postgraduate Department of English, Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College, in this national webinar on Victorian Era and Age of Doubt and Faith, under the benefaction of Gujranwala Khalsa Education Council, steered upon by Honorable Dr. S.P. Singh ji, former Vice Chancellor, Guru Nanak Dev University, and President, Honorary General Secretary, Sardar Arvinder Singh ji. We are obliged to our worthy Principal, Sir, Dr. Arvinder Singh, for always inspiring and motivating, and for being promising to move upon the fresh threads. In the history of the United Kingdom, the Victorian era was the period of Queen Victoria's reign from 20th June 1837 until her death on 22nd January 1901. Morally and politically, this period began with the passage of the Reform Act of 1832. There was a strong religious drive for higher moral standards, led by the non-conformist churches such as Methodists and evangelical wing of the established Church of England. Ideologically, the Victorian era witnessed resistance to the rationalism that defined the Georgian period, and an increasing turn towards romanticism and even mysticism with regard to religion, social values, and arts. Technologically, this era saw a staggering number of innovations that proved key to Britain's power and prosperity. Modern medicine saw the light of day thanks to the adoption of the germ theory of disease. The number of significant innovations in science and technology and of scientific genesis peaked during the Victorian era. Domestically, the political agenda was increasingly liberal, with a number of shifts in the direction of gradual political reform, social reform, and the widening of the franchise. Thanks to educational reforms, the British population not only approached universal literacy towards the end of the era, but also became increasingly well educated. The market for reading materials of all kinds boomed. The Victorian period of literature roughly coincides with the years that Queen Victoria ruled with Great Britain and its empire. During this era, Britain was transformed from a predominantly rural, agricultural society into an urban, industrial one. New technologies like railroads and the steam printing press united Britons both physically and intellectually. Although now the period is popularly known as a time of print, conservative moral values, the Victorians perceived their world as rapidly changing. Religious faith was splintering into evangelical and even atheist beliefs. Working class, women, and people of color were agitating for the right to vote and rule themselves. Reformers fought for safe workplaces, sanitary reforms, and universal education. Victorian literature differs from that of the 18th century and Romantic period most significantly because it was not aimed at a specialist or elite audience. The Victorian period was a time when new genres appealed to newly mass audience. Poetry was one of the most popular genres of the Victorian period. Narrative poetry was much longer when it was written in that period. Alfred Lord Tennyson used in the form of Ulysses as well as In Memoriam. Sensation fiction typically centers on deception. Another Victorian genre, melodrama, achieved popularity by upholding popular values. The serial form of publishing, in which installments of a novel were released at regular intervals, encouraged engaged audience. Satirical realism, psychological realism, social realism, and industrial novels were also written. Essayists like John Ruskin, Thomas Carlyle, Thomas Macaulay, John Stuart Mill, Matthew Arnold all wrote famous works of non-fiction prose. Novels from this period tend to be more melancholic and bleaker than early Victorian works, which conventionally had happy endings. The Victorian era was the first great age of doubt and a critical moment in the history of the Western ideas. To discuss these issues, I am profusely elated by the august presence of our distinguished guests for today's webinar, a learned scholar, a poet par excellence, a literary critic, and a reflective speaker, a modest and unassuming human being who has really made us feel privileged. Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya, Associate Professor, Department of English, Vctorian College, West Bengal, and Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Ram Mohan College, Kolkata. Thank you, ma'am, and thank you, sir, for joining us today. I request Dr. Bhupendrajit Kaur now to take us to a virtual tour of the college before embarking upon the main issues. Thank you very much.
Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College is an esteemed institution in Ludhiana which is NAC accredited and affiliated to Punjab University, Chandigarh. The college has a long and magnificent history. The foundation stone of the college was laid by Sant Adar Singh Ji on 30th of March 1918 in Gujranwala, now in Pakistan. Sant Teja Singh joined the college as principal. After him, the prominent Sikh educationists like Professor Jodh Singh and Baba Harkrishan Singh provided their valuable services to this institution. That vast campus in Pakistan with imposing buildings, commodious hostels and playgrounds is now known as Government Islamia College, Gujranwala. It It was renamed on 25th November 1947. After the partition, through the consistent efforts and dedication of Gyani Lal Singh Gujranwala, Sardar Jeet Singh Chawla, Gyani Raghubir Singh, and our long-time serving General Secretary Gyani Harjeet Singh, the college was re-established in Ludhiana in 1953. Sardar Maha Singh became its first principal. It was during his stewardship that a magnificent building came up to house the college, and this prestigious institution, also known as Nursery of Vice Chancellors, is committed to encourage, support and guide the students and society since then. GJN Khalsa College is working gloriously under the management of Gujranwala Khalsa Educational Council. A great visionary and educationist, Dr. S.P. Singh, is president of the council. He is former Vice Chancellor, GNDU, Amritsar. Sardar Arvinder Singh is honorary General Secretary. All the members of Khalsa Educational Council work strenuously for the ideal working of Gujranwala Khalsa College and 4 other institutions: Gujranwala Guru Nanak Institute of Management and Technology, Gujranwala Guru Nanak Institute of Vocational Studies, Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College of Pharmacy, and Gujranwala Guru Nanak Public School. Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College, which was nurtured by several prominent personalities as the principal, is now touching new heights under the skilled supervision of Dr. Arvinder Singh. The vision of the college is to impart qualitative, value-based education as enshrined in the teachings of Guru Nanak, enunciating the principles of coexistence, brotherhood, and above all, universal well-being. The mission is to imbibe the ideals of Guru Nanak amongst the youth in order to instill in their minds high moral values, to create and provide opportunity for the overall development of students that can transform the society, to revive high ideals of students-teacher relationship so as to inspire the youth to have yearning for acquiring knowledge and professional skills, to enable the students to inculcate patriotism and sense of sacrifice for the country. It is a multi-faculty and multi-departmental institution with Department of English, Punjabi, Hindi, Economics, Political Science, Commerce, History, Physics, Chemistry, Mathematics, Computer Science, FTPP, ASM and Environment. We offer numerous courses at graduate level like BA, BSc, BCom, BVoc, courses under the Community College Scheme, BCA, and at postgraduate level we have Masters in English, Masters in Punjabi, MCom, MSc Chemistry, PG DCA, and PG Diploma in Mass Communication. We also offer add-on courses of Communicative English, Journalism, and Bank Management. Vocational subjects include Foreign Trade Practices and Procedures, Advertisement, Sales Promotions, and Sales Management. New vocational courses have been started under the Community College Scheme, recognized by the University Grants Commission, and BVoc courses have been started by the Departments of Commerce and Computer Science. Recently, college has got sanction to start 9 more jobs-oriented courses under NSQF scheme. Every effort is being made by the tireless and hard-working staff of the college to provide quality education to the students as per the present standards. GJN Khalsa College has made a number of initiatives to promote research. So far, more than 150 national and international level conferences, seminars, symposiums, webinars and workshops have been successfully organized by various departments of the college. And these academic events were attended by eminent writers, academicians, scientists and subject experts from India and abroad. In these, a large number of teachers, research students and others associated with the academic field presented their papers. The college has so far published more than 8 books on the basis of research papers presented at these academic events. The college has signed MOUs with the University of Wolverhampton, England and Punjab Bhavan, Canada to promote research at the international level. A Parvasi Sahitya Adhyan Kendra has been established in the college under the able guidance of Dr. S.P. Singh, and it publishes Parvas magazine after every 3 months, featuring works by Punjabi immigrant writers from around the world. The college has recently established Center for Punjab Studies in order to give voice to the social, economic, cultural and religious issues of Punjab and to create awareness amongst the youth about the rich heritage of Punjab. The postgraduate departments of Punjabi, English, Commerce, Chemistry and Computer Science have started new research centers named as Center for Punjabi Studies, Center for English Studies, Center for Business Studies, Center for Chemical Sciences and Center for Information Technology respectively in order to promote research. Under the leadership of Dr. Arvinder Singh, an environmentalist, special attention is being paid by our college to make the college green with the objective of keeping the environment clean and hygienic. In addition to the widespread plantation drives initiated by the college, the students are being encouraged to take care of the environment. Today, it would not be wrong to call Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College as Green Gujranwala Guru Nanak Khalsa College. The college has made remarkable progress in the field of information and communication technology as well. The college has been made a full-fledged Wi-Fi campus and college management software has been developed to computerize the day-to-day administrative work. GJN Khalsa College is paying special attention to the development of the college infrastructure. Installation of 70 kilowatt solar power plant, new look to the auditorium, construction of new building of Gurdwara Sahib, inauguration of new cafeteria are some of the major developments which have taken place in the recent past. Apart from imparting quality education to the students, the college is also making special efforts to hone their talents. The prime objective of the institution is to promote excellence by providing quality education and at the same time ensuring the holistic development of the students.
Thank you very much. The video was prepared by Dr. Mandeep Kaur, Assistant Professor, Department of English. Thank you, ma'am. I request our worthy President of the Council, Dr. S.K. Singh, former Vice Chancellor, Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, to welcome the august gathering with his encouraging, inspiring, and motivating words. Over to you, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Pupinder. I am happy that Department of English has organized a webinar on an important topic, that's of the Victorian age. As per the topic, the age of doubt and faith. This Victorian age is basically that the shifting from the agrarian society to the industrial society. And that period is most important, not even in context with that is the Queen Victoria has taken over and all this. It is the most important that the system from feudalism, we have shifted to the capitalism. So capitalism has got its own style. That's of the industrialization, that's of the urbanization, and at the same time, different type of development that based on the consumerism and all this. So total way of life, thinking process, and the need of the society changes. In that context, this period is the most important as far as the even literature is also concerned. I think this is the most important, and it's basically, I think, as far as my knowledge goes, it's not an age of doubt and the faith, but it's an age of challenge and opportunities. Basically, it's an age when the new opportunities have come for the society, which is up to the level of the capitalism. And at the same time, feudalism is fading out. So it's not, I think, there's a doubt and the faith, but at the same time, it's the challenges and the opportunities. And those challenges and opportunities, new type of society has come up. With a new society, new type of literature has come up in which most fiction and the realism has take place. So age of romanticism, classicism gone over, and at the same time, the age of realism has come, And after that, realism, for that context, is socialism and everything comes in only because of this capitalism. So I'm happy that Department of English has organized this webinar. And for that purpose, I think when we say that when a Bengal thinks one day before the rest of India is a normal saying. So today we are having for this Victorian era literature two eminent scholars from the Bengal. So I think they'll give us a light for the and much advanced as far as the rest of India is concerned. For that purpose, Dr. Patacharya and Dr. Banerjee has accepted our invitation, and they're delivering their lectures on the topics as concerned as far as the Victoria age of doubt and faith, and in what way it will go. I am thankful to both the scholars that they have accepted our invitation and will be benefited with the Bengali look also. With these words, I am thankful to Dr. Pupinder for organizing this webinar and head of the department, Dr. Shishinder, to organize such excellent webinar on a topic which is very important, not only of the English, but all the literary and the sociological concept is concerned. I am thankful to Principal Arvinder Pallaji for guiding this type of webinar constantly from the Department of English and other departments. With these words, I welcome and at the same time thankful to everyone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Your farsightedness and words of wisdom, motivation, and inspiration have always been an encouragement for us. You are a true leader who shows the right path. Thank you, sir. A very humble, amiable, affectionate, and sensitive personality, Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya not only teaches English literature and language, but also inspires the youth to extend a helping hand to those who need it. Madam is Associate Professor of English at Fakir Chand College, West Bengal, and a multilingual poet, literary critic, and translator. She has her own poetry page on the Dallas-based Mud Swirl magazine. Her poems have been published by international and national anthologies and journals like Hibiscus, the Kali Project, Better Than Starbucks, the Hypertext Poetry Nation, and many more. New Delhi for All India Young Writers, when she was there was a meet in February 2020, and she delivered a talk there on short fiction in 2021. She edited the international short story anthology, The Mixed Pair, in 2021, and is associate editor of the Muse of New Paradigm anthology, Authors Press 2020. She was awarded the Philosophic Poetica International Achievement Award, Master of the Word, in recognition of her poetry by Philosophic Poetica and Grand Productions Canada at the World Poetry Conference, Bathinda, Punjab in 2019. Her poems have appeared along with the legends of Indo-English and international poetry, such as K.T.N. Dalwala, K. Sachidanandan, Vibhu Padhi, Bashbi Fraser, and Michael R. Birch. She is Joint Secretary of Prayas, a women's NGO in Kolkata. I request Madam to share her thought-provoking views on the topic of the webinar. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bhupinder Jeet Kaur, for that very, very kind introduction, including my brief stint at Sahitya Akademi, New Delhi, and greetings to everyone present here today. It is a very sort of emotive occasion to be present in the middle of Punjabis and Punjabiyat, and I thank Dr. S.P. Singh for his extremely kind welcome extended to us, both of us speakers from Kolkata, and thank you so much, sir. And it is coming back to the to speak among the Punjabis has been always a dream come true for me, because I did my +2 and also from Patiala, and Punjabi University Patiala has also been my alma mater, because I did my graduation from there. So I greet all the distinguished guests present today at this excellent webinar, national webinar organized by the PG Department of English. I greet SP Singh sir, who is the president of Gujranwala Khalsa Education Council, Dr. Arvinder Singh ji, principal sir, without whose encouragement, I'm sure this webinar would not have taken place. The beloved students and the very hardworking faculty members of the PG Department of English, Gujranwala, Guru Nanak Khalsa College, Ludhiana, including my beloved friends, Dr. Sushminda Jeet Kaur and Dr. Bhupinder Jeet Kaur. I'm so excited to see you today. And I also greet my fellow speaker, Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee, who is from the Department of English, Ram Mohan College, Kolkata, and I'm sure we shall be benefited by his erudite views today. So again, congratulations to the department for organizing this national webinar on such an exciting and thought-provoking topic, which is the Victorian era, the age of doubt and faith. I think the three key words here are Victorian era, doubt, and faith. So these are the three things that we need to deconstruct today's as part of today's topic. Though, as SP Singh Sahib said, there are of course many parts of this. Of many facets of the Victorian age, and he concentrated on the positive aspects of this Victorian era. But since the topic of our talk today, of our webinar today, is just a second. I'm just. I'm extremely sorry for that interruption, and I'm back like the proverbial bad penny. So in these three words, we need to confine ourselves today, though, as SP Singh Sahib has said, there are many positive aspects of the age too. So doubt and faith provide this dichotomy, which we are going to discuss today in our national webinar. If Dr. Sushminda Jeet Kaur gave us an excellent introduction, she gave us an overview, a bird's eye view of the Victorian age, and I'm thankful to her for introducing the students to the concept of the age and making our task much easier. So, so far as the politics of the age is concerned, I would like to focus on certain points briefly, and I'm sure my fellow speaker would be speaking about these also later on. The first is the 1832 Reform Act, which gave the right of vote to all males owning property, to all males, mind you. And it led to the second Reform Bill of 1867, which extended the right to the working class. But despite this, voting franchise wasn't broadened as expected. And this led to the Chartism movement in the Victorian age, which stressed on extending such rights to all the people of England. So we can see that there is a gradual political reform, and the widening of voting franchise domestically definitely becomes one of the issues over which there is much of doubt, much of conflict in this era, as well as a lot of faith in human rights, which get reflected in the various movements of the period. Another feature of the politics here is the policy of the new imperialism, and this led to increasing colonial conflicts. For example, the Anglo-Zanzibar War and the Boer War. So Britain was in fact at war every year in this period. So while the growth of the large educated middle class at home became possible because of these colonial policies and colonial expansion, the faith in industrial revolution and rapid urbanization led to increase in poverty, tenements, child labor, and prostitution. When the 1851 census revealed a demographic imbalance in favor of women, that is, women outnumbered men in England, prostitution, that was earlier regarded as a moral or religious problem, now it came to be regarded as a socio-economic problem. And this led to Josephine Butler's attack on the Victorian double standard of sexual morality and divorce laws. In fact, several factory acts were necessitated in this period, including the 1842 Mine Act and the Elementary Education Act of 1870, to protect the rights of women and children who were otherwise forced to become part of the cheap labor force, and very small children were also exploited as part of the labor force. So there are these social conflicts, economic conflicts, which lead to political conflicts or political schisms in the society, we can say. Another major area of doubt and faith, in fact, the major area of doubt and faith in this period is, of course, religion, which shows the maximum conflict in doubt and faith, as the topic of the webinar proclaims. The doctrinal disputes between the Church of England, the free churches, the evangelists, the dissenters, the Oxford movement led by Newman, the broad church, which is open to modern ideas, all these contrasted with the firm faith that it was Britain's God-given duty to save the world. And we are reminded here of Kipling's famous poem, enunciating the white man's burden to educate and civilize the natives of the Far East. Many later questioned this attitude of superiority of Britain, including many within Britain itself. And the empire was shocked by events like the Indian Sepoy Mutiny of 1857. However, the spread of British communication and transport infrastructure along its global colonies also made the Victorian values of duty and social responsibility as global values. A more general conflict raged between religion and science. It was generated by Charles Darwin's book on the origin of species that was first published in 1859, and that challenged faith in divine creation. His theory, Darwin's theory of evolution based on natural selection, shocked the Victorian society and sensitivity because it believed that man was a sophisticated and superior being. And here Darwin was saying that no such thing. Man was simply made a more evolved organism who had evolved from the apes. Now, in the context of these two major areas of doubt and faith in Victorian society and during the Victorian era, an important aspect to me of this conflict between religious, moral, social, and political doubt and faith is reflected in the novels of one of the most enigmatic women writers of the period, George Eliot, on whose works and writings I would propose to concentrate briefly in today's talk. Now, the first enigma of George Eliot's is her name itself, the pseudonym of George Eliot. Why did she adopt it? When Victorian England knew her as Marian Evans, a famous journalist, editor, literary critic, translator. What caused her to adopt this male name, pseudonym of George Eliot? When writers like Mary Shelley or the Bronte sisters openly attached their names to their works, what was the cause of reticence here in this particular case to reveal her name of Marianne Evans? I'm reminded here of the modern instance of J.K. Rowling, somebody with whose name our students would be very much familiar. Now, J.K. Rowling is actually the pen name of Joanne Rowling. And she says it has been revealed that she adopted this male pseudonym of J.K. Rowling, more masculine sounding pseudonym, because the publisher feared that young boys would not want to read novels written by a woman. But there was also the fact, as per Rowling's own revelation much later, that she was paranoid about revealing her name as she had just come out of a difficult marriage. In George Eliot's case, I have noticed surprising parallels. Though these were all self-imposed reasons for her taking up the pseudonym of George Eliot. The first was to escape the stereotype of women's writing being limited, Victorian women's writing being limited to light-hearted romances. And in fact, this is borne out by her own essay called Silly Novels by Lady Novelists, in which she derided this nature of light-hearted romances written by women writers of the period. The second reason for her adopting the name of George Eliot was to have her fiction judged separately from her work as journalist, translator, editor, literary critic. The third reason was to have masculine anonymity to deal with her characters, because otherwise revealing her name as a female author would focus a lot of unwanted attention on her. And lastly, the reason was to avoid public scrutiny on her private life. You notice here the parallel with J.K. Rowling, as she, quote unquote, lived in sin with a married man, George Henry Lewis. Now, her novels, which are known for their realism, psychological insights, and details of rural life, are marked by her perpetual religious and moral doubts, questionings, and quests. If we try to learn something about her early life, her early schooling exposed her first to evangelicalism, which is faith in the Bible, and later to the religious dissenters. Now, her keen mind debated on the relation between the Bible and science. And in 1842, she declared to her father that she could no longer go to church. And this, of course, led to a major schism between father and daughter. Finally, they reached a compromise that she would appear respectively at church and was left free to think as she liked about religion as long as she appeared respectively in church. And this compromise worked till her father's death in 1849. So we see here the beginnings of the conflict between doubt and faith in Eliot's life. It was also during her stay on a rich man's estate with her father that she observed the social discrimination between the rich and the poor. Her relationship with her partner, Lewis, also caused them much moral consternation, and it led them to shun society just as society shunned them. Now, this shunning was not because they lived in adultery. It was more because they lived in an open relationship. They openly acknowledged that they were in an adulterous relationship, and so it led to a mutual shunning, just as between for many years. Though she felt completely happy in the arrangement till Lewis's death in 1878. Her deep-seated moral doubts also surfaced due to her estrangement from her family because of her live-in relationship with Lewis. And when in 1880 she married John Cross, who was 20 years her junior, she again caused a scandal. But her brother Isaac was finally reconciled to her because he said she was getting properly married for the first time. So there is a certain reconciliation, though that very year itself, George Eliot meets her death. So directly or indirectly, coming to the works of Eliot, she always wrote her novels to portray the social and political schisms of rural England. Uh, we see that both Middlemarch, which appears in between 1871 and 72 as serialization, and Felix Holt the Radical, which appears in 1866, both these were overtly political, depicting an England agitated for passage of the 1832 Reform Bill. In fact, she describes one of the revolts she witnessed during the passage of this bill, movement for the passage of this bill in Middlemarch and Felix Holt in both these novels, and she had actually witnessed these agitations. All classes of society are portrayed in these two novels, Felix Holt and Middlemarch, and we meet the landed gentry and clergy, the manufacturers, the shopkeepers, the traders, salesmen, farmers, laborers. All sorts of classes are portrayed by George Eliot, which help her to lay claim to social veracity. Her last novel, Daniel Deronda, which appeared in 1876, Eliot anticipates a national Jewish homeland by about 20 years by reuniting Mira and her brother Mordecai, and by the discovery of Daniel Deronda, the protagonist's Jewish heritage. Now, in this novel, Eliot shifts gears to depict the wealthy upper class. Till now, she had focused mainly on the farmers, the landed gentry in the rural countryside, but now she also shifts to depiction of the upper class, the aristocratic class. So the faith in a certain hierarchy, in certain social traditions, the falsity of this faith, and the doubt about the social schisms, the social divisions persisting in Victorian society, all these are reflected, and I will again and again probably like to focus on the words doubt and faith, since they are the code words, the main words of today's seminar. So despite the surrender, however, despite depicting these schisms, and despite depicting a new Jewish reality as part of the populace, and despite portraying this vision of a national Jewish homeland that has always been, in fact, of part of the religious faith of England, because of the vision of Israel. In fact, Britain was thought in its new imperialism, it was justified as the new Israel, because it sort of envisioned bringing Christianity to all parts of the world. So, despite the surrender of the egotistical Gwendolyn Harleth, major female character of this novel, to self-effacement, in the end, Gwendolyn embraces a life of much privacy and seclusion. Despite this hopeful self-effacement of egotism, which is again and again a theme in Eliot's novels, the novel itself is pretty bleak, and it shows that even moral sacrifice is not enough to counter overpowering social forces. So there is again this focus on this faith in faith and hope in moral self-effacement, and also the doubt that whether moral self-effacement really works at social levels, because society always tends to overpower the man. And this shows, this being Eliot's last novel, doubt seems to be here winning over faith. The contrast between Mira Cohen, a poor but upright Jewish girl, and Gwendolyn, who marries for money and later repents, is very well brought out. I'm aware of the time, and I shall try to keep within it. I have about 5 more minutes to go, I guess. So, in fact, the faith in female destiny and empowerment is uh, somewhat lacking in George Eliot. Again and again, we see her embracing choices. We see her embracing melodramatic endings in her novels, which sort of go against the kind of life and the kind of personality she herself represented. So, is there a conflict? Is there doubt in the kind of person she was and in the kind of life she would like to lead? Is there a conflict there of doubt and faith? This is what I would like you to think while I'm speaking. So, faith in female destiny, as I was saying, and empowerment, female empowerment, is somewhat lacking in George Eliot. She kept aloof, in fact, from many of the public campaigns of the day for female empowerment, and she did not think that women even needed the vote. So, this is very surprising when you make an in depth study of Eliot and her convictions. Though she donated money and books to her friend to open a college, she even doubted the extended benefits of women's education. Yes, this is George Eliot, and this is the dichotomy. This is the of between doubt and faith, between her approach to several aspects on which there were huge agitations in society going on at that time. So this is deliberately odd, as I was saying, given the strongly independent life that Eliot herself led as a successful editor, as one of the highest earning females in England at that time, and a writer who lived openly with a married man. Coming back to her novels, in Adam Beat, which was her first novel. And we also realized that most of these novels were written by the encouragement of her partner, Lewis. She owed a lot of encouragement to him. So in Adam Beat, the character of Dina Morris is a selfless Methodist preacher. But she makes Hetty repent, Hetty Morrill, the young girl who is referred to sometimes as a baby-like innocence or animal-like innocence, but who sins by abandoning her her illegitimate newly born child. So Dina Morris is the Methodist preacher who makes Hetty repent, and she also makes Adam, the protagonist of the novel, soften his rigid moral stance. So Dina here is a major moral catalyst in the novel. But though Eliot appreciates Dina's power to bring good to society, curiously, she makes Dina settle down into domesticity at the end of the novel. So again, there is this conflict between a woman's independent status and capability to do good for the society, as against curtailing her, restricting her to the domestic sphere. In The Mill on the Floss, the vibrant and intelligent character of Maggie Tulliver, who is in fact has been a beacon for so many young women readers, she is made to die a watery death in the name of moral compensation. A, for her sin, A, of her alliance with the cripple Philip Wackham, and B, for her sin of later elopement with Stephen Guest, who is practically engaged to her cousin Lucy. So we also see that the less likable characters, female characters in Eliot's novels, like Hetty Sorrel in Adam Beat, who is seduced and forced to abandon her baby, which leads to its death, and the manipulative Rosamund Vincy we come across in Middlemarch. These less light women characters are in fact even fated to disappear in death or silence, despite there being a growing movement in the Victorian era to assure maintenance, financial maintenance for girls who were seduced and abandoned by men. So again, here we see that doubt and faith in the moral order as contrasted to the ongoing social movements for easing of these moral reproachments, are curiously highlighted in the novels of George Eliot. So finally, in Middlemarch, I would like to talk at the end, which is considered to be her best creation. And in the same year, 1871-72, Middlemarch is appearing in serialized form. In the same year, J.S. Mill was vociferously calling for equal rights for women. So while a man is fighting for the rights of women in the Victorian era, what does George Eliot do? She takes up a masculine pseudonym. She's writing under a most masculine pseudonym. And Eliot denies her heroine Dorothea in Middlemarch her evident propensity to become another Saint Teresa. And of Avila, Saint Teresa was this very famous 16th century reformer. And Eliot recognizes this moral capability of Dorothea to become such a reformer of society and continue to reform society. But instead, she portrays Dorothea at the end of Middlemarch as settling down into cozy domesticity. So I end my speech, my talk, with just a few. These are just a few suggestions to think about the conflict of doubt and faith in individual novelists and their works. And I end with quoting a very significant passage from Middlemarch, from the finale, from the final section. I quote, this is about Dorothea. But the effect of her being on those around her was incalculably diffusive. For the growing good of the world is partly dependent on unhistoric acts. And that things are not so ill with you and me as they might have been is half owing to the number who lived faithfully a hidden life, and rest in unvisited tombs. So here the woman is sacrificed to anonymity, to middle class anonymity, domestic bliss, but she's not allowed to realize her full potential as a moral reformer. So the pervasive spirit of reform, again, I would like to stress, which is so aptly fruitful in the case of the male protagonists of George Eliot, from Adam Bede to Silas Marner, right down to Daniel Deronda. They are often denied to George Eliot's female protagonists. And I would like to end my talk with leaving this pointer as to the doubt and faith of the individual writer and to her particular individual choices. Thank you so much. And I hope I have just finished in time. Thank you so much for allowing this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you. You have rightly said that the Victorian age had actually produced enigmatic women writers like George Eliot, and you have elaborated her novels, famous novels rather. Thank you for enlightening us and sharing the light of knowledge with us, which you have acquired during your academic and professional journey. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very much. Our next speaker, Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee. He's working as an assistant professor at the Department of English, Ram Mohan College, Kolkata, and as a guest faculty at the Department of English, the Sanskrit College and University, Kolkata, West Bengal. Dr. Banerjee completed his doctoral studies in 2015 from the Department of English, Vishwabharati, on the writings of Acharya Prafulla Chandra Ray. He was nominated as a fellow of the UGC UKIERI research project in 2015, coordinated jointly by Edinburgh Napier University, Scotland, and Vishwabharati, Shantiniketan, India. He pursued researches on Scottish Orientalism and the Indian Renaissance, Tagore and his circle in the universities of Edinburgh, Glasgow, and Dundee, under the guidance of Professor Bushby Fraser, Professor Amrit Sen, and Professor Tapati Mukherjee. He was also associated with a number of UGC research projects of Rabindra Bhavna Vishwabharati on the writings of Rabindranath Tagore between 2010 and 2013. Dr. Banerjee has delivered invited talks at different institutes like Sir J.C. Bose Trust, Kolkata, the UGC HRDC Patna University, Patna, Rabindra Bhavna Vishwabharati, the Daath Voyage online lecture series, and so on. He has also authored several articles in different journals and critical volumes published in India and abroad. His areas of study and research include post-colonial studies, Tagore studies, late 19th century and early 20th century Indian English writing, partition literature, Bengal Renaissance, and history of science. I request Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee to kindly start with this lecture. Over to you, sir. Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee, kindly unmute yourself, sir. Dr. Banerjee.
Hello, am I audible to all of you?
Yes, now you are audible, sir.
Okay. Sorry, my computer was sometimes there's some problem in the setting. So can I have just a little bit of time to turn on the audio and the video in my laptop? If you just allow me to do that.
Okay, sir.
Yeah, just a little bit of time.
Okay.
Okay, actually, I'm not being able.
So your voice is getting distorted. If you are facing any kind of technical problem, kindly let me know. Your voice is getting distorted.
Yeah, actually, I'm not being able to unmute myself in my device, in my laptop. So could you please do that? Because most probably it is being muted by you.
Okay. Wait, sir. I'll help you out.
Yeah.
Okay. Try now, sir.
Yeah, sure.
And
yes, I think now you can hear me clearly.
Yes, but please.
Am I audible to you right now?
Yes.
Yes. I'm switching off the other device.
Yeah.
Sure.
Otherwise, it will keep on echoing.
Yeah. Yes, is it fine now?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much, and I'm really sorry for the technical glitches that has unintentionally occurred and happened. So we can't help it because we are facing a lot of these in this pandemic situation. Anyways, thank you so much for this for the warm invitation that I have received from the college, from your college. It's been really a privilege to me that I have been invited to share my views and opinions in this national seminar. on the Victorian era, the age of doubt and faith. The Honorable Chairperson, Dr. S.P. Singhji, the former Vice Chancellor of JNDU Amritsar and the President of Gujranwala Khalsa Educational Institution, the respected principals, Dr. Arvinder Singh of this college, the respected organizing secretary, Dr. Shushminder Jit Kaur, and definitely Dr. Bhupinder Jit Kaur, the respected faculty of the Department of English. So it's been really an honor and a privilege to me that I have got this opportunity to talk on this particular topic today. Actually, my previous co-speaker, Dr. Mandakini Bhattacharya, has wonderfully, got a clear picture on this particular topic. So thank you, madam, for your enlightening talk on this. So, and very importantly, what madam has also pointed out, that our keynote speaker, Shushminder Jit Kaur, has also very succinctly she has given us a clear picture of the Victorian society in a nutshell. And definitely our chairperson, sir, Dr. S.P. Singhji, he has also very clearly pointed out that what is the crux of the theme of this seminar, and what we understand about the Victorian society and culture through his words. So I don't know that how much I do have something new to share with you, but I'll try to give you some brief portrayals of the contemporary of the Victorian era, and would like to also enlighten. I don't know that how much I'll be able to do that, but would like to throw some light on this particular concept, the age of doubt and faith, because this is very crucial, this is very important while we are talking about the Victorian age. So I'd like to begin my lecture with this note. I have prepared a very short PowerPoint presentation, a few slides. So I'd like to share that with you and begin thereby. Okay, I guess that the screen is visible to all of you.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Yes. So this is my lecture, the Victorian era, the age of doubt and faith, the theme of this national seminar. I would like to begin my talk with the quotations, with the three quotations of some three eminent speakers, the writers, not the speakers, the writers and thinkers of the contemporary era. The first is of J.S. Mill. He says, mankind have outgrown old institutions and old doctrines and have not yet acquired new ones. The second one is of Thomas Carlyle. According to Carlyle, the old has passed away, but alas, the new appears not in its stead. And the final one of Matthew Arnold, the famous poet of the Victorian era. In his poem, The Dover Beach, he says, wandering between two worlds, one dead, the other powerless to be born. So, with these quotations, I would like to begin my lecture today, and would like to also draw your kind attention to the fact that what these writers were trying to portray in their writings while they were talking about these things. First of all, in all these three quotations, we find that the writers are perhaps pointing out, all these three writers and thinkers, they are pointing out to the fact that man is placed as if in a transitional phase, the age in transition, and the kind of transition where it is becoming very difficult to grasp the past, the present, and the future. So as if the man is bewildered, he is confused that what path he should take to walk along. So with this note of bewilderment, with this note of confusion, I would like to proceed and would like to give you a glimpse that why and how these confusions arose at that time, and what could be the factors which led the writers to think in this way. What was the Victorian era? This has been already pointed out by our previous speakers and in the keynote address. It says the Victorian era is an age of British history spanning the 64-year-old reign of Queen Victoria. The 19th century was one of the rapid development and change. During this period, England changed from a rural agricultural country to an urban industrial one. The point that has already been made by Dr. S.P. Singhji in his presidential address. This involved massive dislocation and radically altered the nature of society, because this is the fundamental feature of the Victorian world, from an agricultural setup to an industrial one. Though the Victorian era is said to have begun in 1837 and ended with Queen Victoria's death in 1901, the period can be stretched to include the years both before and after these dates. That means that though we call it with some particular dates, though we place it in a particular chronology, but perhaps its impact cannot be confined within that particular 64 years of era, but it spans before and after that, before the Napoleonic Wars, from the Napoleonic Wars, and until the 1914, which we call the outbreak of the First World War, and perhaps the beginning of the modern age. So perhaps the Victorian era stretches to that point in the history, conceptually. The changes that this age was witnessing. England was moving steadily in the direction of becoming Europe's most stable and prosperous country. These things have already been pointed out by my previous speaker, Dr. Bhattacharya. She has said that how England was becoming the most powerful imperial entity, and with its intention, with its rather, I would say that with its desire to extend its territory to the foreign lands, to the distant lands all throughout the world, how England was becoming a most powerful nation at this time. Britain was becoming for the first time the richest country in the world, but at the price of being the first to encounter the immense social problems that arise from the rapid development of urban industry. In fact, this is the point where the question of doubt and faith becomes very important, where the social problems engulf or are juxtaposed with the tremendous progress which we witness in this age through industrialization, capitalization, and urbanization. So definitely, if the progress is taking place, then it should not be without any kind of problems, any kind of issues, but it accompanied a lot of hurdles in the contemporary society and culture. The changes that the age was witnessing. The population got nearly doubled and the British Empire expanded. The period saw the British Empire grow to become the first global industrial power, producing much of world's coal, iron, steel, and textiles. This rapid urban growth was, of course, produced by the development of new factories operating with steam power, other discoveries such as the battery, the textile mill, and to the spread of the railways in the 1830s and 40s. We know that all these are the blessings of the industrialization of that particular period. Now, we also see here the rise of a new class, a new social structure. This new status as the world's first urban and industrialized society was responsible for the extraordinary wealthy vitality and self-confidence of the period. The biggest social change in English history is this transfer between 1750 and 1850 of large masses of the population from the countryside to the towns. So the migration was taking place to a large extent during this time. The basic social classes were transformed from small farmers and rural craftsmen into an urban proletariat and a lower middle class of industrial employers. As we are saying that the age was progressing and was stepping into a new era, the era which was marked by rapid urbanization, industrialization, and capitalization. So as a result of that, it had also produced a new class, a new social structure. Self-made entrepreneurs used their new wealth to rise in society, building large houses, educating their children, and employing domestic servants. So this new middle class was gaining prominence at this time. And the middle class, which will be portrayed by many writers and authors, who will be portrayed in different angles by many writers and authors of the Victorian society or in the Victorian literature. This quotation, which we often use in order to, with reference to the kind of empowered position that Britain once enjoyed, was actually, it had become popular and was used during this period. The sun never set upon the British Empire. The Great Exhibition of 1851 displayed the wonder of both industry and empire. Tied up with the empire were Britain's trading dominance, naval and military strength, and competition for territory against other European nations. Britain had emerged from the long war with France as a great power and as the world's predominant economy. By the end of Victoria's reign, imperialists could boast that the sun never set upon the British Empire. So you can understand that the kind of optimism, the kind of ambition that the English people were asserting, or they had in their mind, how assertive were they when the age was steadily progressing to with an undaunted spirit, the spirit which cannot be challenged, as if the spirit which cannot be challenged by anyone else. Think of the I can bring the reference to the massacre that had happened during the drowning of the ship Titanic. So the same kind of optimism perhaps could also be witnessed at that time, because it had been said that even God does not have the power to make do anything with this sheep. The kind of boasting that the English used to have at that time. So England as a nation was actually enjoying this empowered position from where they thought that they could conquer everything in this world. How the society got affected. Now, with all these positive aspects of industrialization and capitalization. Now, if we take a very close look, then we'll find what were the negativities that accompanied with this progress and development. Along with the economic progress, the Victorian age was also marked by poverty and exploitation. The gulf between the rich and the poor grew wide with drive for material and commercial success. There appeared a kind of moral decay in the society. There were huge social costs. These are important. The dehumanization of work, child labor, pollution, and the growth of cities where poverty, filth, disease flourished. Child labor and poverty were also a feature of rural life, where farm work involved long hours. So you can see that these are perhaps the underbellies of the contemporary society that was affecting the contemporary culture a lot, and perhaps behind all the light, this was the darkness which was troubling the Victorian psyche a lot. The curse of the progress. The Industrial Revolution, however, was just beginning to bring dirt and squalor, ugliness and crime into the lives of the poor, whom circumstances forced to live and work in the mills and factories of the new towns. We know that these were the pictures of the portrayals which had been which we can find in the novels of Charles Dickens, and very widely found in the novels of Charles Dickens as well as the other Victorian novelists. Laborers were being unfairly treated without redress. Women workers were also ill-treated and underpaid, while children were often overworked in abominable conditions. So you can imagine. I just take a little bit of time because it's raining heavily out here. So I just take a little bit of time to shut the windows. So please excuse me just for a minute.
Okay, sir.
Thank you so much. So you can see that whether it is in the novels of Charles Dickens, whether it is in the novels of George Eliot or the Bronte sisters, all of them had portrayed these negative aspects of the Victorian era and the darkness behind the light of progress and development. A shift in the religious perspective. Catholic emancipation was taking place. We know the movements, the Tractarians and the Oxford movement in the Church of England, taken along by Henry Newman, John Keble, and Edward Percy. They regarded the Church of England as a branch of the universal church led by the Pope. So in religion also we'll see a kind of a secular approach, the kind of approach which negated the dominance or the imposition, the forceful imposition of power of the church. Rather, these religious thinkers were proposing to have a more direct relation between man and God. All these non-conformist movements emphasized a simple form of religion dependent on the Bible without ritual. These events agitated the Victorians far more than would seem reasonable to a more secular age. Non-conformity thus had a powerful political potential and eventually found its way into the trade unions and labor movement. With the promotion of different scientific and philosophical theories, the Victorians tended towards a more secular and liberal state of existence. The point that I was making, that religion was taking a kind of a liberated phenomena, as if it was coming out from the rigid doctrines of Christianity and was trying to express itself in a far more independent and liberated society, and in an independent and liberated ambience, so to say. So this was the aspect, the religious aspect of the contemporary age, which was inspiring men to live or to find their identity in a secular ambience. And with this, we find the prevalence of, or the new discoveries, or the new inventions in the field of science and theology and philosophy. For example, the natural theology proposed by William Pallas. It says the divine wisdom could be discerned in nature, which seems to offer an independent proof of the existence of God. Only an intelligent designer could have created animals and plants, just as only an intelligent watchmaker can make a watch. So you can see the role that is being given to God. So an all-empowering power that was invested to God from that position, as if God is now getting a human form, as if he is humanized, so that one can have a very intimate relation between, one can enjoy this intimate relation between God and man. It posited the existence of a grand divine plan of nature, putting human beings, the only creatures endowed with a soul, at the center of God's design. That is very important, because human being, or the very entity of a man, was becoming important, and man was being placed at the center of the universe. The kind of movement which had taken place during the age of enlightenment, I think, therefore I am, or man at the center of the universe. So the same thing is also percolating in the Victorian age, where these scientific theories, these theological propositions were trying to put man at the center, and was trying to posit man in a kind of a existence, in a kind of a state where they can enjoy a far more liberated and independent relation with God. The birth of new science and philosophy. I'll just mention the science which were very much important at the scientific discoveries, which were, or the philosophies which were becoming very important at that time, and which had made a huge impact upon the contemporary society. That is Charles Lyell's Principles of Geology, Robert Chambers' Vestiges of the Natural History of Creation, which had drawn its tradition from Lamarck, because Lamarck argued that organic changes were to be understood as a response to changed environmental circumstances, rather than being fixed and created by divine power. The same thing, all these philosophers, all these scientists, all these theologians, what they were proposing this kind of a secular ambience which should exist, and where there should not be any kind of an imposition by the church, a forceful imposition by the church or the religious authorities. And the most important work which was could be seen in this period was Charles Darwin's Origin of Species, being published in 1859, because it is through his theory of evolution he had made this point very clear, that that species had not been made in their final form by God, but changed and evolved over time. So this was a groundbreaking analysis by Charles Darwin. And then comes the Doctrine of Positivism by Comte, where Comte was proposing that a priori beliefs had to be rejected. Only what could be seen could be verified, could be these could be the true. So what you can verify, what you can see, this can be called the truth, not something which is beyond your grasp. So you can see that facts, the positivists believed, were not were out there waiting to be discovered. The enriching prospect opened up a time in the future when every fact would be known. So nothing should be unknown. Everything will be known. Everything will be within the grasp of the humankind. So that is very important. So what did science actually do? Science offered this spirit of exploration. Science offered man the spirit of optimism to think beyond his imagination, to grasp which had so far been untouched, which had so far been unreachable to man. So this was what science was offering to humankind. And what was the reaction? This is very important. We are almost towards the end of our presentation, just 2 or 3 slides. This is very important because on the one hand, we can see the rapid industrialization and urbanization was making men ambitious and optimist. We have discussed this, and we have also seen that this approach turned out to be absolutely new and unique because it was completely different from the older models, the conventional thoughts and views. But at the same time, as we have pointed out, that it was the age where man was being placed in a transitional phase, and the all-round development which were taking place in the Victorian society, culture, and politics, it had created a bewilderment and confusion. People appeared to be skeptical and doubtful to accommodate these alterations in their life at one go. On the other hand, the several negative impacts of industrialization and urbanization made the thinkers, writers, and philosophers extremely disillusioned and nihilist, who expressed their utmost despair about the deep-rooted moral and spiritual vacuum created at that time. This is the crux of our argument, the doubt and faith. On the one hand, there is man's tremendous optimism and ambition, his faith that he can conquer everything. On the other hand, there is a deep-rooted doubt that whether this change can really be accommodated, whether this change is at all beneficial to the humankind, or is it a curse? The reaction from the literatures, the second last slide, I think. An endemic doubt, a prevalence of metaphysical anxiety is prevalent in the vast majority of Victorian writers. My previous speaker has already pointed out with reference to some of the works, so I would not go into the details of those. I would just point out that how the Victorian writers were actually demonstrating these confusions, these doubts in their writings. Because doubt of the existence of God, regarding the existence of God, because why this doubt is being created? Because we can see the deep-rooted moral and spiritual vacuum, because as man had thought to progress, leaving behind everything, perhaps he was also leaving behind his moral and ethical principles. And it was with this compromise, perhaps, which was creating this this vacuum, this crisis. The writings of Trollope, George Eliot, Thomas Hardy, Thomas Carlyle, the Bronte sisters, they seem at first glance, they seem radical secularization of the English novel, but on a close look, they actually display a deep religious ambiguity, a moral and spiritual vacuum. In Great Expectations, I would not go into the details of this slide, but I'll just point out that in Charles Dickens' novels, for example, in Great Expectations or in Bleak House, we also find the similar kind of horrors, the darkness of the contemporary society. In Carlyle's writings also we'll find the degradation of the slums, which becomes symbolic of the degradation of the overall English society and culture. The same kind of loss of faith, mourning, and the same kind of despair, disillusionment could also be found in the Victorian poetry at large, especially of Lord Tennyson, Matthew Arnold, Robert Browning, and others, where these poets will be succinctly portraying the underbellies of the contemporary society, and they will bringing in this crisis, this moral and spiritual crisis in their poems. So just I would like to end my lecture, my talk with this quotation, that though we find this doubt, an overwhelming doubt amidst this temper of progress and development, but still the writers of the Victorian era, they had a kind of an inner faith, as if some kind of positivity was still there in their mind, that the world will come out from all these darkness, and there will be a day when man will be able to see the light, and will be able to overcome all this moral and spiritual crisis. So this is the last few lines of Lord Tennyson's poem Ulysses, where this line is very important: to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. So in a different context, though, Tennyson is saying that it may be that the gulfs will wash us down, it may be we shall touch the happy isles and see the great Achilles whom we knew. Though much is taken, much abides, and though we are not now that strength which in old days moved earth and heaven, that which we are, we are. One equal temper of heroic hearts, made weak by time and fate, but strong in will, to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. That means at what cost it may be, but we will not succumb. Ultimately, we will win, and the willpower of man will be the winning force, and ultimately it will be the man who will be able to hold his head high and live happily with his moral and ethical principles. So with this note, I would like to end my talk, and thank you so much for bringing me this opportunity. I hope that I have been able to, I don't know that how much I have been able to throw some lights on this concept of the seminar. Thank you so much. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a wonderful session. Thank you for your thought-provoking and wonderful views. You took us to the literal virtual tour of the Victorian era, and very effectively, undoubtedly, you touched almost all the aspects and characteristics of the same. You also pinpointed a few certain words: confusion, dilemma, disillusionment, doubt, which can be associated with this era. Thank you very much, sir. Now, I request our worthy principal, Dr. Arvinder Singh, who has always been an inspiration and motivation for the young minds to create their own path and follow the words of the gurus, to extend a heartfelt gratitude to all present.
Thank you, Dr. Bhupinder. Dear friends, good afternoon to all of you. For a long time now, various departments of Gujarat Guru Nanak Khalsa College, Ludhiana, have been maintaining their glorious tradition of organizing national and international webinars, symposium, conferences on wide range of issues at frequent intervals. It's a great honor for me that in the continuation of series of such academic activities, today our postgraduate Department of English has organized a national webinar on Victorian era, the age of doubt and faith. Well, on the behalf of Gujarat Khalsa Education Council and Postgraduate Department of English, I would like to thank Professor Mandakini Bhattacharya, Associate Professor, Department of English, Vctorian College, West Bengal, Dr. Vishwanath Banerjee, Assistant Professor, Department of English, Raman College, Kolkata. I'm sure that the thought-provoking ideas presented by our source persons have definitely enhanced knowledge of all those who are present with us in this webinar. I would also like to thank our managing committee of our college, especially Honorable Dr. S.P. Singh, our worthy president and former vice chancellor of Guru Nanak Dev University, Amritsar, for his active support, guidance, and encouragement, which always proves to be very effective for all of us. I would also like to thank Sardar Arvinder Singh, Honorary General Secretary, Gujarat Khalsa Education Council, for his active support. I congratulate Postgraduate Department of English for taking initiative to conduct this webinar. Here I wish to acknowledge the professional commitment and dedicated efforts of Dr. Shishmanderjeet Kaur, Head Postgraduate Department of English, and Dr. Bhupenderjeet Kaur, Organizing Secretary of this webinar. I would also like to thank our technical team for their technical support to conduct this online event. Finally, once again, thank you all.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, everyone. Thank you very much.